We live by faith. Now, whose faith are we going to put in? Faith in ourselves? This is a really serious one. This is the most important of all. Because this is man's way or God's way. If we choose to put our faith in ourselves, that's where the ultimate term, God help you, comes in. Because if you think you can do this, God says his way is the one that works. And we have to put our faith in him. So for by grace are we saved. Now, that's a little piece as well. Mercy is not getting what you're supposed to get. That is, you drive 50 in a school zone and the judge says, forget it. That's mercy. You didn't get what you were supposed to get. Grace is unmerited favor. Grace is when just somebody gives you something. You're walking down the street, somebody hands you $100. That's grace. Now, that's what God did for us. For by grace are we saved through faith. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Now, it's a natural tendency of religions to make you do a lot of work. He makes it clearly. You know, it's like you give your child something and they say he has to go out and earn it. And no, I gave it to you. It's your gift. And so when we go out trying to work our way, it's kind of a lack of appreciation. So by grace are we saved through faith, that not of ourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. Now, so when that happens, when we ask him, now we have two sources of input. We are born of the Spirit. We are made perfect in his sight. But are we perfect in each other's sight? Not always. And so one of my real challenges is driving. And so when a person pulls out in front of me, I have a fleshly reaction. Wrath, murder, or we have a spiritual reaction, gentleness, goodness, faith. Now, here's the distinction that took me a long time to figure out, and I don't think my grandmother ever figured it out. And that's this. There's a difference between salvation and being filled with the Spirit. That is this. For salvation is what God does for us. That is God's gift for us. What we become is our gift back to him. So that when we are washed in the blood, we are restored into salvation. Now we have two sources of input. And our heart then becomes whatever it is fed, either from the flesh or from the Spirit. So if we build the flesh so that our mind, our will, and our emotions are fleshly, then we will, that's the response that we'll have. You poke a person and they blow up. You know, so they're full of wrath. However, if we feed it from the Spirit, it'll be love and joy and gentleness. Now, how do you do that? First of all, how do you build the Spirit? There's 4 ways. It's found in Acts. You do 4 things. Number 1 is regular Bible reading. That's important because it's God talking to us. You say, Bob, you're going back on yourself. You just said a minute ago it's hard to read. I understand. 2 things about that. I'm going to go back and read this in the King James Version, perhaps the hardest to understand, and you're going to see that even it makes sense once you see the plan. But if you've never read the Bible before, you might want to consider something called the Message. The Message is a paraphrase, so it talks not in little verses, but it talks in paragraphs, in stories. And so you will, if you buy the Message and you read it, you will find out that in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes, you will have read an entire book of the Bible, which you may have never done before, because it tells the story. So the Message would be one, Amplified Bible would be another, but find something that you can read because this is God talking with us, number 1. Number 2 is regular prayer. That's us talking with God. Now, if you grew up in a tradition where you had to memorize things or something, there's nothing wrong with that. That was to be helpful, particularly back in the days when people couldn't read and things, and so that they had a certain tradition. But the fact of the matter is that God knows you and loves you. He knows your heart, and he's looking for that. And if you but speak to him, there's no ritual involved. He loves you with an everlasting love. He knows you better than you know yourself. And when you ask him for advice or counsel or leading, he will do that in a time of crisis or whatever, because he knows you and he loves you. It's like your child. You know, you want them to ask for help. Bible reading, prayer, regular fellowship with believers. That's spending time with one another. Now, at this one, sometimes people say, well, you know, I don't have to do that, and that's true. Probably you don't. It's kind of like the farmer who's out plowing the field and he comes across a duck. And he said, Duck, what are you doing out here in the middle of the field? I mean, the pond's down there. I don't have to be in a pond to be a duck. I can be just a good duck out here. I can stay out here, but I can be a good duck. I understand that, Duck. But if you're a duck, you want to go to the pond. I mean, that's where the other ducks are. And so it's true that you don't have to go to church or do something, I suppose. But it's beneficial to have fellowship with believers, to spend time with one another. And one of the best things are the home Bible studies that Family Life has. They're just dynamite, absolutely dynamite in helping to do that. Bible reading, prayer, fellowship with believers, and regular testifying, ministry, doing something for someone else. Happy people are people that give to happiness. Life is lived with happiness by the givers. We've only said that to our kids from the time they're in high chair. They say it all the time, and whenever they complain about something, we say it back to them. I don't know how, I forgot it just now. But life is lived with happiness by the givers. And you find people who are unhappy or miserable, I promise you they're not doing something. Just get up out of the chair and go do something for someone else. Go help other people, and you will be restored. So it's just like when you take in, you must give out. So we take in Bible reading, prayer, but ministry to others. The degree to which we do those four things is the degree to which we will have love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness in our heart. So when we willfully choose to do this, then it flows into our heart, and our heart becomes filled with these things. So then, talk about ecclesiastical phrases. People would say about my father, you could just see Christ in that man. To immediately, my little logical sequential mind would say, what does that mean? Here's what it means. It meant that my father's reactions, his willful responses, his emotional eruptions were Christ-like. His mind, when it would default, all of us have a mind that defaults to something. Some defaults to sports, mine defaults to politics. His would default to Scripture. He just really loved this stuff. He just did it all the time. And when he would get nervous, you know how when we don't know what to say, you know, he would say, and when I was dating Liz, she's known because all of my brothers and sisters all have spouses and all, and they've all known my dad. And so they're sitting around, and Dad doesn't know quite what to say next. And so he would say things like, do you ever wonder what the Lord meant when he said to Moses to do? And Liz or I crack out of the barrel and say, nope, Dad, never did, and I'm not doing it now. And with that, everybody laughed because it was his form of entertainment. He enjoyed, but he was so gentle, and he was so good that when he died, the people just stood up for 2 hours giving testimonies of little things that he had done. Now, the thing was, by building the spirit area, then your heart becomes like that. There are magazines that build the flesh, arouse the flesh. There are magazines that appeal to the mind. There are magazines that build the spirit. There's conversation and jokes that arouse the flesh. HBO, any given weekend. Comedians, lots of talk about body parts. There's conversation and jokes that appeal to the mind. Bob Hope. They're clever. They're funny. They're cute. There's conversation that builds the spirit. There's music that arouses the flesh. There's music that builds the soul. We call it soul-stirring music. It's music that's strong in the emotions, what you want at a political event or a military rally or something. There's music that builds the spirit. Now, this is who we are, our heart. Remember I said at the beginning, you know how your husband will react, how your wife will react, how your children, this is sum total of who we are. The degree to which we read magazines, engage in conversation, read books, spend time building the flesh is the degree to which our heart and our mind will have adultery, fornication, wrath, envy, strife, our heart. The degree to which we build the spirit, listening to music, spending time with others, focusing on magazines and articles and other things that build the spirit, is the degree to which we will have love and joy and peace and gentleness in our heart, in our marriage, in our home. Now, if you have a lack of love in your life, I promise you, you go back and do those four things. A strain between you and your daughter. If you have a lack of joy in your life, you wake up at night with peace is gone and you're upset. If you turn to the Lord, Bible reading, prayer, I promise you, you're letting down in one or four or more of those areas. If you do one or two of them, start doing them mechanically, His Holy Spirit will bind you and repair the love and joy and peace in your life. So that is the distinction between salvation, which he gives to us, and then the walk that goes along throughout life.